Hello, guys, and welcome to Odds on Champions League Matchday 6. And this is about to be over, at least the group stages. And we have Dani and Alvaro with us. Hello, guys.
Hello.
So let's analyze the games we have on Wednesday, because still there are some things to get solved. So remember to comment the video with us, of course, and press the like and subscribe. And the first game we are going to analyze is a good one, Group E. We have Milan Salzburg with a draw. Milan will be through to the last 16 round, but Salzburg, of course, if they win, they will be in the last 16 round. Dani, Milan lost in Torino at the weekend. Are they going to screw it up, or do you trust them?
I can see Milan qualify. Let's clear it straight away. I don't think they're going to not be in the next knockout stages, but I cannot see the Milan winning clearly, or is it going to be like a high-scoring game for a couple of reasons. I think Milan at the moment, they are reliable. You've seen them in Zagreb, but they lack sometimes a little bit of spark. And if the key men are not there, or they don't perform very well, like the example of Leao against Torino, missed two clear chances and then he kind of disappeared from the game. They did it the first half without Benacer, and I think they really missed his geometry. He's going to be there, by the way. I think Milan are going to suffer. And also, it is a team that is still got a lot of injuries, especially in the defense section, and that sometimes puts Pioli under pressure to displace players not in their natural role. So I'm not sure why Kalulu always plays on the right, whereas Gabbia, centre back, is now collecting a few mistakes. But Milan is solid. They got an identity. They got a strong belief, and they got great players, in every position of the pitch. I think because they're playing for 2 results out of 3, let's not forget they just need a draw to qualify and finish second, and the pressure is on them as champions of Italy to qualify. I don't think they're gonna mess it up. They do suffer against teams that press them very high, that impose the rhythm, so they could have some issues with Salzburg maybe in the second half when they tire. But I think the bigger experience and the know-how should see them through. It's not been a great campaign for Milan in Champions League, I must say. I would have imagined them maybe to fight a little bit more for the first spot, but really the disappointing game was at Stamford Bridge. For this one, as I said, I think Milan is going to qualify. But if you look at the odds and where there is the value, you can go for a double chance for Salzburg in the second half. So second half X2, which pays really well, 198. So either a draw or Salzburg winning the second half, which doesn't mean Milan might lose or might not qualify.
All right, Milan suffering. Alvaro, Salzburg to win here is 6.75. Do you think they can do it?
I'm going to keep, let's say, like a surprising odds like this for some other matches, really. I think that in this one, you can actually try to look for value somewhere else and not necessarily the full-time market. I know that, for example, you could handicap a little bit Salzburg, but I think that this is a final. This is a real final because both sides, they still can qualify for the next round. Milan needs to avoid defeat. That makes a big difference because Salzburg has to win. And even they have to make sure that they get points, because otherwise they will go down to 4th spot and they won't qualify for the Europa League. For example, if they lose and Dinamo wins, which is very unlikely anyway, Dinamo Zagreb, it's very unlikely. But I think that Salzburg will set their eyes in the next round, in the knockout stages. Last season, they qualified as well. And it will be definitely keeping the progress for Salzburg to qualify for the next round. This is a tricky game, in my opinion. I think that AC Milan will have the upper hand, don't get me wrong, because after being so many years out of the knockouts and based on their form in Italy, at the end of the day, they are very solid in there. I can see them going through, especially at home. And in the Champions League, they've been better than Salzburg. They have scored more. They have conceded more as well, but they have a better goal difference too. I think that the fact that they are playing at San Siro is going to play a part. But anyway, my favorite market here is the under goals. under 3.25 goals, 162. I think that this game is not going to be very straightforward. It can be decided in small margins. We have seen that Salzburg doesn't score many in the Champions League, only 5, and kind of the same thing applies for AC Milan, really. From the big sides in the Champions League, AC Milan has scored little, 8 goals only. So I think that this game, Milan is going to manage it, but probably keeping the scoreline low.
All right, this is the most interesting game we have on Wednesday. We are checking, of course, which teams are gonna qualify with the draw. Milan will go through, and in this group we also have Chelsea, Dinamo, Zagreb. Well, Zagreb, they still have some options to go to the Europa League if they are able to win in Stamford Bridge. And this game, Alvaro, comes in a very bad moment for Chelsea. Perhaps Potter is gonna shuffle a little bit the cards because they were outplayed and thrashed by Brighton at the weekend.
Yeah, but he better don't shuffle them too much, because he did that against Brighton and it didn't work. It was like imagine that I throw on top of the sofa a chessboard and all the pieces mixed together. That was more or less how the tactics were against the Chervis Brighton the other day at the Amex Stadium. Chelsea was very poor, or Brighton was superlative. We can also say that because they really were. And Graham Potter was a little bit hurt because he got booze at the Amex Stadium. And the thing is that after the game, he was even a little bit self-vindicative, saying that he did a very good job at his time at Brighton. But Chelsea didn't look good. There were a few things that I didn't like. Number one, of course, the injury of Kepa, Arrizabalaga. Mendy had to come on the second half. This is not good for Kepa. Then the fullbacks didn't work. Sterling or Pulisic playing on the wings didn't work. Then at the end of the game, we had Chilwell and Loftus-Cheek playing also as wingbacks. That is a proof that Graham Potter didn't like what Sterling and Pulisic were offering. He's still Graham Potter finding his best 11. And then I think that the midfield of Chelsea didn't or wasn't capable of keeping the ball, with Kovacic suffering a lot. Jorginho wasn't there. So, it was a bad game for Chelsea, and they still have the time to recover. Of course, they are qualified for the next round, and they will be better if they field players like Aubameyang, who was on the bench the other day against Brighton. Then Dinamo Zagreb, away from home, they haven't been good in this Champions League. We have to say that. They have been very good on their own turf. But then when they went away, they weren't able to make the difference in any sort of way. So, since Chelsea, yes, I know that they are group winners, but also they are playing at home and they want to recover from a very bad result. Against Brighton, I'm going to back them. I'm going to back them, for example, saying that they can go for a safe bet, like Chelsea and over 1.5 goals, which is 144. It's not too much, I know. But if this is not good enough for me, or good enough for you, since Chelsea has been conceding as of late, I could go for Dinamo Zagreb to score over 0.5 goals. They just have to score 1 goal in Stamford Bridge, regardless of the scoreline. That pays 165.
I do like the one from Alvaro, because actually Chelsea have conceded in each of the last 3 games, and before they kept 5 clean sheet. Mendy was not perfect when he came on against Brighton. I think the last goal from Brighton, he doesn't really pair the ball really well and push it away. So there is a reason why he was on the bench. And yes, Alvaro break it down really well. Potter is changing, he's tinkering a lot for the formation. Obviously, the injuries of Kante, Reece James don't help him. But I think Chelsea must also have the concern that they don't score many goals in the Premier League, regardless of how many attacking players they got. Newcastle, Brighton, Fulham, Leicester, and Liverpool have scored more than Chelsea in the Premier League. And, at least 3 out of those 5 teams, you would say they got worse squad than Chelsea. But when Chelsea click, they are sometimes bordering unstoppable, but they always do it. They don't do it for 90 minutes. They do it in certain moments. Look at, for example, the goal Havertz scored against Salzburg. Look at some of the plays they did against Brighton in the second half. They need to make sure they sustain that for 90 minutes. But I think, because as I said, this is a home game, the pressure is not on for Chelsea, really. They know they can finish easily first of the group. They're going to be a little bit more relaxed, I think, and they're going to win it, this one. But maybe they're going to win it by a small margin. So I'm going to go for Chelsea win in this case and under 3.5 goals. So that makes 224, which again, you can basically play both the tips that Alvaro said and my tips, they all go together. So is a Chelsea win for 2-1 or 2-0 is still good for you in both.
They're compatible,
yeah, we were discussing this in our Premier League video that when Chelsea wins, they do it ugly. They are not playing great so far, but until the weekend against Brighton and the previous two games in the Premier League, Potter was getting good results, and he is getting results at least in the Champions League. Well, next group, we jump into Group F, and here we have Real Madrid, Celtic. Real Madrid need to win this one to be top of the group in case Leipzig are able to win against Shakhtar Donetsk. Bad moment for Real Madrid. Dani dropping points in La Liga against Girona. A controversial game, I must say. And also losing the first game in the season against Leipzig. When Benzema is not there, the team suffers, and I can see a little bit of fatigue in the team.
Against Leipzig, they really suffered the rhythm. Leipzig in the first half, they do concede a lot of goals. Real Madrid only kept 2 clean sheets in 11 games, and also in the first fixtures against Celtic, for 50 minutes, Celtic were level with Real Madrid. They hit the post, they had chances. So Real Madrid, again, it might be a win for Real Madrid. They've done it so many times, but it might not be a win by a huge margin. That's why I decided to go for a nation handicap for Celtic +2, which pays 194. So if Celtic wins, if Celtic loses by 2 goals margin, you do not lose your stake. If you lose only by 1 goal margin, you actually winning. If they draw, you are winning. For Celtic, it's been a very big experience for them, this Champions League. They've done better than Rangers, but still has been a little bit humbling. You know, I think they found that the level of the Scottish champions is quite far away from the rest of the top teams in Europe. Against Shakhtar, both games finished 1-1. At times, Celtic were frantic. They created chances. They pushed on so much, sometimes even too much. You know, they almost forgot to have control of the game. In the end, Shakhtar could even have won it. The numbers of Celtic in the Champions League are bad. They failed to win 19 of the last 20 Champions League game. No wins in the last 9. Only kept 1 clean sheet in the last 30 matches in the Champions League. But as the manager, as Postecoglou said, this has to be the platform for them to return the next year, build up experience. It is a still relatively young Celtic team with a lot of interesting, not only Scottish, but also foreign players. They're very good at recruitment. So next year they can come back a little bit stronger, but they're not going to play in Europe this season. So Celtic as an handicap +2, 194, maybe a scrappy game, maybe a 2-0 win for Real Madrid. In that case, you just get your money back.
A bit risky, in my opinion, because Real Madrid should be angry, Alvaro, after the last results.
I'm going to back Real Madrid, Edu. I think that they are what they could call a crisis, but this is a very mild crisis because, yes, they lost to Leipzig, then they couldn't beat Girona, something that I didn't expect, as probably you have seen in our previous La Liga video. But the truth is that it's a very mild crisis because they are already qualified for the next round of the Champions League and they are still topping La Liga table. So it's not too bad considering. The injuries are piling up for Carlo Ancelotti, and especially some important injuries because, you know, the injury of Karim Benzema, you can stay with him or you can play without him, for a few games. But if this is continuous on time, then it's not good because Karim Benzema is not only the goals that he's providing, but also the continuity and, the link-up game that he's offering to the rest of the attacking players. So Vinicius can feel a little bit lonely up front sometimes. And then I think that some other players, like for example Tchouaméni or Camavinga, by the way, I like them a lot, especially Tchouaméni, sometimes they are still, you can really tell that they are adjusting to Real Madrid, even though Tchouaméni's landing in Spanish football has been fantastic. But against Leipzig, I could see that. And I think that it's normal. I mean, these are new players, especially Tchouaméni, not Camavinga, but Camavinga is still learning. And they have to get better as the time goes by. Casemiro offered a third time experience that these two guys don't offer yet. Then I think that in defense, Real Madrid sometimes doesn't aim for perfection because they know that they are going to win the game. But I am pretty sure that when the big games come, Real Madrid is going to aim for perfection in defense. Not yet, but they will. I'm pretty sure about it because they have done it. Then when it comes to Celtic, again, their form in the league is not translatable. That's the thing to the Champions League. They have won this weekend, again, 3-0. They were happy with the win. They know that winning the Scottish League, it's almost an obligation for them, but then the Champions League has been too much for them. They are not going to be third. They can't finish third. So this is a little bit of a message still to the smaller leagues. The Champions League has a different level. So since Real Madrid needs to win or to better the result of RB Leipzig, I can see them winning here. They are not going to waste any time. So I'm going to back Real Madrid with an Asian handicap of minus 1.5. That pays 162. And then there is another market that I really love here. Both teams to score no. I think that Celtic is struggling a little bit to score goals in the Champions League. And if Real Madrid takes this seriously and they want to win this game, well, maybe this is the time to deny Celtic from scoring because they have scored 3 goals in the Champions League. So both teams to score, no, that doubles up your bet.
3 goals scored only by Celtic in this Champions League. And in this group also we have Shakhtar Leipzig. Leipzig need to win to push Real Madrid to win to get the first spot. Remember that when they played this game in Germany was a surprising result, 1-4 for Shakhtar. Shakhtar very competitive, Alvaro, in this Champions League. They are qualified already for the Europa League. Their only defeat was 2-1 at Bernabeu, and Leipzig, they are getting better and better so far, but when they are playing away, I still have doubts. They beat Celtic, but both in the Bundesliga and in the Champions League, they are always way worse when they play away.
They are, yeah. The thing that separates Leipzig and Shakhtar in this Champions League group, apart from the quality of the players, I mean, Leipzig has a very good team, especially going forward, is the fact that Shakhtar has been drawing here and there 3 draws, and Leipzig hasn't drawn. I mean, they lost 2 games, yes, but they won 3. So that's why they are in this favorable position. Leipzig, they are going to go through if they avoid defeat. And, I think that they have a good chance of being very competitive in the knockout stage because up front they've got a lot of talent and I wouldn't like to play against them. Some of the best link-up game and counter-attacking goals I have seen in the Champions League, they've been scored by RB Leipzig with Nkunku, Szoboszlai, Timo Werner, linking up perfectly. By the way, Guardiola, what a defender. The other day he played fantastically against Real Madrid as well. So they've got some players here and there who can make the difference. And I think that Leipzig here are going to win this game because I think that Shakhtar, as good as they have been, maybe finishing third for them is already a success. Because they are going to go to the Europa League no matter what. And I think that Leipzig has more talent up front and they are going to make the difference at some point, as they did against Real Madrid the other day. I mean, Timo Werner the other day, he didn't play much, but he did score against Real Madrid. Players of that quality, they are not always starting for RB Leipzig. So I'm going to go for, I've got actually a couple of markets here, the individual and the collective. So Leipzig to win is good enough, I think, 172. But Nkunku to score or assist, if he plays, check the Matchday squad anyway, always. Nkunku to score or assist pays about the same, 173. And I think that this is a very good opportunity here as well, because the Frenchman is on fire.
I think Leipzig, since they changed the manager, since they appoint Rose for Tedesco, they turn the page. They are more consistent. They're winning more games. They won 2-0 at the weekend. They are a better balanced team. And in the reverse fixtures, the 4-1 for Shakhtar was under Tedesco. It was a bit of a freakish result. Leipzig were playing at times a bit of a reckless football, pushing too many players up or in front of the ball, and they were susceptible to counterattacks. This Leipzig suffered less in those areas. And in the end of the day, the 4-1 win of Shakhtar was also helped by a couple of individual mistakes. The first one for Gulaschi to allow Shved to score the opening goals. So I think this is going to be a different story. Shakhtar, of course, they can qualify if they win, but only won one of the last 12 Champions League games, which, by the way, was against Leipzig. We know about Shakhtar. They changed pretty much the entire team after the conflict. So it is remarkable what they're doing. And I mean, it is difficult for them to be consistent week in and week out. At the weekend they drew 2-2. It's very difficult, to have a proper league form in those conditions. But they got good players, they got quality players, and I think they showed in every single game that they can score. So does Leipzig. So for this reason, I'm going to go for an over 2.75 goals. I'm going to go for a 194. I think Leipzig is going to qualify. But if there are 3 goals or more, you win. So over 2.75 goals, 194.
Next group, Copenhagen, Borussia, Dortmund. Copenhagen, they lost 3-0 in the Sanchez Pizjuan in the last game, although they put a fight, we have to say, against Sevilla at home. Not even Man City was able to score a goal in the Parken. Sevilla neither could score a goal, and Dortmund, they are doing a good Champions League, in my opinion, even putting in trouble Man City. They also beat Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, a tough game. Away this season, Dortmund to win is 1.8, Dani.
And I think it's a good odds here, although Copenhagen have only lost one of the last 14 Champions League group stages, 6 wins, 7 draws, including a 0-0 against Manchester City. But any other day, that's a 3-0 for Man City, okay? It was a bit of a strange result. Man City missed a penalty as well. Congratulations to Copenhagen, because despite being put in a different group, I think by playing defensive football and sometimes changing formation many times during the game, going from a back 3 to a back 5, being tactically flexible. Also, they made life difficult for opponents that are much better than them. This is a team that has got a lot of injuries. Also, they've changed the manager a couple of weeks ago, so they're in transition. They are 6th in the table in Denmark. They won at the weekend after 3 domestic draws. But the flip side of the coin is that they haven't scored in the Champions League. This is the only team that hasn't scored a single goal in the Champions League yet. So you can tell. I mean, they were in a very, very, very difficult group. Dortmund, on the other hand, despite missing obviously the big signing of the summer, Sebastian Haller, they are winning games. They are turning the corner slowly. I think they're becoming a more of a consistent team at the moment. I don't see them losing here. It could be a 1-0 for Borussia Dortmund. It could be another 0-0, because after all, there is nothing to play for. I'm going to go for both to score, no, 230.
Copenhagen didn't lose, but Copenhagen goalkeeper Alvaro is making miracles in this Champions League.
Yeah, he is. That's why I won't congratulate Copenhagen, Daniele. I think that the side that has only 2 points in the Champions League and they haven't scored in this competition, they don't deserve so much.
Well,
I know that
look at the group. Look at the group they are. Look at the group
still, they haven't scored, man. They haven't scored in
Victoria Pilsen,
450 minutes.
Victoria Pilsen has scored, but it's not that they play better than Copenhagen. I think Copenhagen showed us that for some spells of games they can go toe to toe with very, very good side. That's why
they really can't, because they've got 2 points and they have conceded 11. They haven't scored in the Champions League, and even the other day Manchester City missed a penalty against them. Their best success, in my opinion, was keeping the door shut against Sevilla at some point. But Sevilla is awful this season as well. This weekend they lost against Rayo Vallecano. So, they could have capitalized a little bit on Sevilla's moment as well. This is one of those games in which I think that you have to back Borussia Dortmund. Then winning would be about right. But both sides are already, they know their destiny. I mean, Copenhagen are going to finish 4th no matter what happens. And Borussia Dortmund are through to the round of 16 as runners up. So maybe rotations will change a little bit the style of the sides, and perhaps the ambition won't be there for no one, because if anything, you are playing for the money. If you win a game in the Champions League, I think that you are getting 2.8 million, which is probably good to pay a couple of a couple of months of salary for the footballers. So I think that this is the only thing they're playing for, really. Look, in this game, since Copenhagen, and I give them this, they have been sometimes good at home defending. I'm going to go for the under goals market. Under 3 goals, 179. Maybe Borussia Dortmund doesn't push the accelerator as much as they could. So under 3 goals, this is where I'm staying.
Another meaningless game is the next one. Man City, Sevilla. You mentioned, Alvaro, the awful moment for Sevilla. They are in the relegation spots in La Liga. They lost to Rayo Vallecano. So this game is completely in the middle of the way because the following week they are playing a derby against Betis. And this is a massive game for Sevilla. Not much improved since Sampaoli arrived. And going to the Etihad is not always a good thing. I guess we can only back Man City to win easily here.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you can handicap Manchester City. I think that would be realistic because Pep Guardiola, I mean, he's going to rotate, and this is going to obviously affect the game as well. I'm not saying no to that, but at the same time, even if you rotate and you are a Manchester City manager, your side is going to be still pretty competitive, right? And then Sevilla, they are having their own issues. And in La Liga, they have been really bad this season. They are very slow. They are everything that Manchester City are not, really. For example, an Asian handicap, perhaps, of minus 1.75 for Manchester City would be a good one. That base 180. I think that I would like that one. I like a clean sheet for Manchester City because Sevilla doesn't score many goals. And even if Manchester City rotates in defense, they can still field a very good defense. Right now, Ruben Dias, Laporte, Ake, Akanji are rotating. So, Pep Guardiola is going to field at least 2 of these 4. And then Cancelo will probably play, maybe Sergio, the Spanish left back. I think that they can still put a very solid defense. And I think that Sevilla doesn't score many goals. So since Manchester City are through already and Sevilla finishes 3rd no matter what, I think that I'm going to go for a nice handicap minus 1.75 for Manchester City, as I said, or a clean sheet for Manchester City. It's terrible what Sevilla is doing this season, and Manchester City, they are not flying exactly because, Arsenal is still ahead of them in the Premier League, but, we have the certainty that Manchester City at home normally doesn't lose. So Haaland or not, Manchester City is doing the job. This weekend, it was difficult for them against Leicester because Brendan Rodgers parked the bus and a goal from Kevin De Bruyne was needed to win. What a goal, by the way. But still, Manchester City should win this game. So I back them, definitely.
No Haaland for sure. Pep Guardiola confirmed that, but it would be stupid to risk him, really. This is the last few games before the World Cup. This is definitely a game that Manchester City probably doesn't even need to play. I'm sure they won't risk many players. We'll see a lot of rotations here. But, that makes sense. After all, yes, Manchester City are home in the Champions League. They are almost a safe bet. They won 81% of the Champions League home games with Pep as a manager. They always beat Sevilla in the Champions League. Is 3 out of 3. But one thing that Manchester City doesn't have and never had so far under Pep Guardiola is that they never had a 100% winning record in the group stages that other teams had, for example, Bayern Munich or Real Madrid. Why? Because normally they qualify early, and the last couple of games, they either get a draw or a defeat here and there. Last year, they lost 2-1 at Leipzig when they were already qualified. 2 years ago, drew 0-0 at Porto in the penultimate game. 3 years ago, they drew 2 out of the last 3, including a 1-1 at Shakhtar. So that tells you that I think in terms of maybe the club, the players, the mentality, maybe it doesn't really matter to them having a 100% record. There are other teams that are a little bit more eager for that statistics, which, by the way, is a nice statistics, but after all, apart from the monetary aspect, it's pretty useless once you are qualified. So let's make rotations. I don't know. I think they're going to win it, but it's going to be by a low-scoring game. Everyone expects a lot of goals. I'm going to go for under 3.25 goals, which pays 2.12. So if the game finishes 3-0 for Man City, for example, you still win half your stake. If it finishes 2-0, you win the full stake, 2.12.
Much more interesting is the last group, Group H. Massive game, Juve PSG. I'm not sure, Dani, if Juventus are thinking on the Europa League, but they could be even out of Europe if Maccabi Haifa is able to get a point against Benfica and PSG win in Turin, and PSG need the victory if they want to finish first. And PSG is flying right now with the strikers Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe scoring every single game.
I'll tell you what Juventus is thinking about. He's thinking about the Derby d'Italia, Juventus-Inter, who's being played on Sunday. This game against PSG is pretty meaningless for them. Okay, crashing out of Europe in December, it would be a massive shame for a team that has been tipped to win the Serie A in August. But let's face it, it's much more important to not lose against Inter or to make grounds in the league. And after all, the last two Italian champions have all been knocked out from Europe in December. They didn't even play in the Europa League. So it could be a good omen for a Juventus side that won the third consecutive game in Serie A 2-0, 1-0 at Lecce. Was another ugly win. They didn't create much. They rested some players, of course. Perhaps they didn't give Vlahovic a lot of minutes, but not because they are thinking on PSG. I think it's because they're thinking about Inter. And they've been helped by young players. And also we saw it at Benfica, Allegri giving spaces to the likes of Fagioli, who scored at Lecce, a great goal. Suale, Miretti is playing more and more. Ealing, the young English player who playing, but now he's out for 20 days. He picked a lot of injuries. So I wonder whether these young players will start again against PSG. It will be a very good learning experience for them. But of course, Juventus does risk to go out of this competition, because I think ultimately PSG, because this is all about the goal difference, they will want to finish the job early. They will want to score a couple in the first half and make sure that Benfica cannot reach them. Based on the result of PSG, Benfica might rein it in a little bit, and I'm not sure Maccabi Haifa are going to get beaten at home. So if Juventus crashes out of Europe altogether, it will be on points. It will not be on goal difference, and that testifies how poor campaign they had. Yes, people say they got a huge potential because of Pogba and Chiesa coming back, etc. But this is all in theory. Is the midfield really that is the real issue of Juventus? Also the defense. Without Bremer, they are susceptible to concede a lot of goals. Gatti is making a couple of mistakes as well. Look, no doubt about PSG are going to win this one, and I don't think many people will cry in Turin if they lose. PSG win and over 1.5 goals. Put them on together. Very nice odds, 199, so almost doubles your stake. So it can be a large win for PSG. If PSG wins by 2-0, for example, you win your stake.
And I know, Alvaro, you've been impressed by PSG performances, especially Leo Messi.
Because he's playing very well. Again, last season it was a bit weird, and it took him some time to adapt. And in the Champions League last 16 round against Real Madrid, he missed a penalty in the first leg, and I think that last season was a season to forget for Lionel Messi. But now he is organizing the play fantastically. He is the one giving all the passes in the final third, and he's scoring too. I mean, he's got already double figures in goals and assists this season. And then they've got Kylian Mbappe, who has scored 6 goals in the Champions League. I mean, the firepower is up there, and what can I tell you about Neymar? Everything I say from now on will be a cliché, because we know about these strikers a lot. I think that Juventus cannot afford to lose heavily at home. Again, I know that the season hasn't been good. I know that they've got many problems in midfield, as Daniele said. Still, they could score more goals, that's for sure. But then, at home they have only lost 1 game this season. It was a high-profile game against Benfica. This game against PSG looks similar to that one. But the fact that they have lost only 1 game at home this season tells you that at least they keep that pride in their own ground. They have thrown many, but it's maybe not so difficult. It's not so easy to beat Juventus.
But who do they play? But they didn't play great opposition. Easy games. They only played
Roma.
Rome.
Was the only one, but they got a draw against them. Yeah, you're right. But what I mean with all this is that sometimes going to these European high royalty grounds is not as straightforward. That's all I mean. But of course, Juventus hadn't had a good season, that's for sure. And PSG is having a good one, and they are scoring many goals. And the team they have created for this season makes more sense than the team they had last season with Fabian or Soler offering a lot of technique in midfield, and Berratti, of course, just to be together with Messi and create a good game. So I'm going to go here for PSG to win with PSG and over 1.5 goals, 191. But maybe this is not a stroll in the park for Paris Saint-Germain. And of course, if you like Mbappé scoring, that pays 2.1.
And the last game in this group is Maccabi Haifa Benfica. Here with a draw, perhaps Maccabi Haifa can go to the Europa League or with a victory. And Benfica, they need to win to try to be first. And what a season, Benfica. They are keeping the streak in the Portuguese league, 6 points away from the second. Also great in the Champions League, destroying Juve. And Alvaro, it's difficult now not to trust Benfica even. If Maccabi Haifa, at least they are scoring goals, the opposite as you were talking about Copenhagen.
Yeah, definitely. I think that Maccabi at home, at least they go for it and they unroll very nice attacking sequences. I think that this is quite remarkable by them, but still, the remarkable thing is Benfica, really. They are having a great start of the season. They are playing with a certain confidence that is very remarkable, very surprising, and very refreshing. The time of Portuguese football right now is very good. They are going through a very good moment with Porto and Benfica already qualified. Sporting Club Portugal is still with a chance, strong chance of qualifying for the next round as well. And in Benfica, some players stand out. For me, Rafa Silva is the best one this campaign. He has scored 9 goals already. Then Benfica against Juventus, I was reading some stats by UEFA. They have been so good. They were so good. In the final third, they had a completion rate of passes of 86.2. You know, the accuracy against tight defenses of Benfica was phenomenal, and they should have beaten Juventus by a stronger and heavier scoreline the other day. They interchange positions fantastically, and they are the team to watch right now with Napoli, even though Napoli are on a different league probably because they are incredible this season. So for this game, I think Benfica to win is about right, 172. They have to win because they want to be first of the group. And if you want to squeeze a little bit more money, maybe Benfica to win at 60 minutes, 190. I wouldn't go for Benfica to win at 30 minutes, which is 2.8, because this side, Benfica doesn't score as many as Bayern, as many other sides that we have backed in the past to win at 30 minutes. But Benfica to win at 60, 190 is also very interesting.
Benfica, by the way, they are unbeaten in 16 games. They won 5-0 at the weekend. Yeah, and they have been amazing this campaign. And Maccabi Haifa, I think they've been amazing as well, but for different reasons. Is a team of extremes. You know, they don't mind a lot the defensive sides. They are the third worst defense of the Champions League. Also in the qualifying stages, they conceded a lot of goals. They score a lot of goals. That dramatic knockout stage against Red Star Belgrade, a bit of everything happened. But then they got goals in them. Sevilla, Eintracht, Celtic, Atletico Madrid, Leverkusen, and Rangers have scored less than Maccabi Haifa. So it is a team that, you know, pretty unbalanced, if you say, probably lacks of experience as well at the European stage, but they got goals in them. They are physical and, you know, they can pose a threat. I think a lot depends on this game, what's happening in Turin. If Paris Saint-Germain is scoring 3 or 4 goals early, maybe Benfica rest a few players, maybe they think a little bit of Portuguese league, the thought of some of the players going to the World Cup kicks in, and maybe they rein it in as well, whereas Maccabi Haifa, they can get galvanized. I can tell you, a place in the Europa League for Maccabi Haifa means a lot to them. I'm not sure the same means for Juventus. So maybe they might get a draw after all, Maccabi Haifa. At the reverse fixtures, it was 2-0 for Benfica. Maccabi Haifa had a couple of chances, but was the first game in the proper group stage. So maybe I wouldn't read too much into them. Both to score, I like it. I think both have got goals in them, and over 2.5 goals to make it a little bit more juicy. Altogether, 270.
Goals in Israel. Then, well, this is it. Then for your tips in the group stages, let's finish, Dani, with your safe bet for this match day.
PSG not to lose in Turin. Asian handicap 0. Odds are amazing. 217.
Wow, very big odds indeed. And Alvaro, your safe bet?
Benfica to win, 172.
You trust them. And Alvaro, let's go with your ACCA.
Of course. Chelsea and over 1.5 goals. Benfica to win. Asian handicap -1 for Manchester City. Leipzig to win. Altogether, 553.
And despite the many surprises we are seeing in the Champions League, we had a good week, the previous one in Europe with our ACCA. So let's see yours, Dani.
Especially Daniele.
Chelsea win. Thanks for highlighting it. Chelsea win. Juventus PSG over 2.5 goals. Maccabi Haifa Benfica both team to score. Shakhtar Leipzig over 2.5 goals. Total odds 6.59.
Thank you, guys. See you very soon. Remember to like the video and subscribe. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye bye.